Hello, everybody, and welcome back to week 3 of our Jank Tank Draft League. This is our team builder for the week, and I am your coach of the Wodonga Why Nots, Orucs-Oraihc. First things first, our week 3 opponent is going to be Unholy Nate, and Unholy Nate had a fantastic draft, in my opinion. Picked last in the first round, actually, and wound up with something quite incredible for a team. So let's just get straight into that. Very excited. Our week 3 opponent is Unholy Nate again, and take a look at this draft. We've got Tangela, probably best redirector in the format. We've got Lickitung, which is very bulky, very strong. We've got Drifloon, great unburdened Pokemon. Elekid, Carvana, Happiny, Dratini, Swinub, Honedge, Squirtle, and of course the mascot pick Combi. Now, I personally think these picks, for the most part, are very good. And I think that there's a lot of synergies here. There's a lot of really strong Pokemon on their own here. But let's just get into it and talk about things. Let's go from the bottom up this time. First things first, Combi. I've made a set for it here, but I really expect it to not come ever. I don't think there's a way it could possibly be just strong enough for this week. If you just look at its stats, everything outside of its speed is kind of horrible. Like, even though its Little Cup 30, 42, 42 bulk is not cutting it with Bug Flying type. Especially not with Bug Flying type. There's a lot of great type combinations. Bug Flying is not one of them. And with only 30 in its both of its attacks, it's not going to be doing much damage. Sure, it hits a good speed tier. It's base 70, but that being said, it's not doing any damage without Choice Specs or Choice Band. I don't expect Band because it gets 2 physical moves, Dual Wing Beat, Bug Bite. In fact, it only gets 7 moves, or 8 moves. I don't know, I can't count. There's 7 here, I think. Look at these. It's not exactly the mark of a great Pokemon, and, Bug Buzz is good against some of my team, but it's also not great. Gust is good against, one of my Pokemon on the entire team, maybe 2. It doesn't get any coverage at all. Sweet Scent, I guess you can use if you want to be running Sleep Powder or other inaccurate moves, but all in all, I don't think that this is going to be great Pokemon. Sure, it gets Hustle. You could run Hustle with some sort of a boosting item, but even then, if you are max attack, you're hitting 90 stat, and 90 attack stat is not good. Even with Hustle being times 1.5, that's still hitting 135 at max attack, adamant. And again, only 2 physical moves. So not exactly something I'm expecting to see. Next up, we have Squirtle. Squirtle was Unholy Nate's last pick in the C tier. It's a great Pokemon. It's a Shell Smasher. It's really strong. I could see it running Focus Sash or White Herb. I don't think White Herb's quite as likely, although it is possible. Its defenses are fairly decent. Something like Max Speed, Max Special Attack is probably the most likely thing. Ice Beam, Ice Beam, Hydro Pump, something like that. Of course, its special attack stat isn't great, but it's manageable with a modest nature, which is what I would expect it to have. It would hit that 112 stat, which is, again, fairly decent. And especially at +2 after a Shell Smash, this thing, I think, has the ability to go wild. That said, it is weak to grass, which is where my Bulbasaur comes into play, because Bulbasaur explicitly beats Squirtle. Even with Ice Beam, I just think that's going to be a key part of my team. And again, with modest nature, this thing hits 95 stat. That's going to be important. Next, we have Carnage. Carnage was Unholy Nate's third pick in the C tier. It kind of went to the wayside of everybody else. It's a really good Pokemon, I think. It gets Swords Dance Shadow Sneak, which is really good. Only switching to that to a Shadow Sneak at +2 is really a normal type or a dark type. So there's not much to counter this Carnage in the draft. It's relatively bulky. It's like 100 base physical defense is great. It's an amazing stat. And 80 attack, this thing can go wild. But 45-35 on the special side is not what you like to see. Its speed is good for Trick Room, but there's no Trick Room setter on this team. There's not a Trick Room setter on a lot of teams because it's Little Cup, but with Carnage, you really don't need it because of Shadow Sneak either. But if it wants to do damage to a normal type, it's really got to be in Trick Room, or especially against a special normal type. So maybe a bit of foreshadowing there, but Swinub, I think, could be good. It gets Thick Fat. Snowcloak, I'm not expecting. Oblivious, I don't really think of either because I don't have Intimidate. It could run Ice Shard, and something it could do is run Ice Shard to side proc weakness policy. It could also just run it for its Stab Prio, which is very good. Earthquake, Icicle, Crash, Rock Slide. Gets good moves, not the greatest naturally, but it's very manageable to use. So definitely something that could put in some work this week, and it's got, again, pretty decent stats outside of its special defense, which is not exactly what you want to see. Base 30 Spadef is never the best to see. Next up, we have Dratini. Dratini is an interesting one because this thing is a physical attacker with a lot of good moves. It's a pure dragon type, so it's only weak to Ice Dragon Fairy. And it gets some good moves. With a Choice Band or another boosting item like a Life Orb, it could really deal a lot of damage. And the one thing I can say about it is it's its abilities aren't great for it. Shedskin, excuse me. Shedskin and Marvel Scale. While Shedskin is decent, I don't really have a status-oriented team at all. Marvel Scale, again, the main way you'd want to do this is with Flame Orb. You could use a Toxic Orb, theoretically, but there's really not much point of having 1.5 times defense if you're going down on a timer anyways. So I think something like Band or AV, maybe even Life Orb with just, there's a lot of attacks it can use. I'm expecting something like Waterfall, Extreme Speed, Outrage, or maybe Dragon Rush. I don't know if it gets Dragon Rush. Yeah, it does. So something like Dragon Rush could be a possibility. But it could even go for a Scale Shot as well. But this thing, while it does have that good stat and good move pools, its speed is only base 50, which is a really awkward spot. It's relatively fast compared to a lot of Pokemon in Little Cup, but it's just not the greatest. It does get extreme speed though, which is very important because that's a very strong priority move for Dratini. Next up, we have Happiny. The thing about Happiny, as opposed to the other members of the line, Blissey and Chansey, is its HP is literally half of what theirs is, or less. There's only base 100 HP, which is, again, an insane stat for Little Cup. But this is kind of the special defense, the only kind of special defensive mon on my opponent's team. It's really good at soaking up special hits with base 100, base 65. And it's decent at that. It could run essentially the same thing that Chansey runs in normal VGC when you see it, which hopefully I wish that none of my subscribers ever run into Chansey on the ladder, but this is kind of what they run. Protect, Minimize, Seismic Toss, Defense Curl. The thing about this is, even as a special wall, it's not great. unless you invest heavily in special defense. Even like little cut mons, something like my Solosis is going to be doing a number to this thing, especially if it gets Calm Minds or if I get nasty, even like my nasty plot Spritzy that I have run can threaten this thing immensely even. And Minimize, while it is a great move, it is not as good with Dynamax, so that's something to keep in mind as well. And again, base 30 speed, not going to be mattering as much for something like Happening, which is almost purely a defensive mon, but still something to consider. Next we have Carvana, and Carvana is probably the most threatening looking Pokemon on my opponent's team. Just in terms of pure offense, it can run something like a Berry, it can run a Choice Band, it can run really like a Life Orb, anything. But like getting a Protect, getting its speed boost off is going to be vital for it. It's base 65, which is already very fast. At +1, it hits 192 stat, which is the important number in terms of speed for the week for me. 192 stat was one of those important numbers that I always like to hit. So it gets really good coverage. Crunch Liquidation, Dual Stab, Psychic Fangs you could use. It gets Ice Fang. It gets some other coverage that I was thinking about. Bounce it could run for just another max Airstream speed boost. Poison Fang you could do. You could run Scale Shot for a Dragon type move. There's a lot of choices. The one kind of weakness in its stats is its defenses and its bulk are just not great. This thing is a glass cannon in Little Cup, so I could honestly see it also running a Focus Sash just to avoid getting one-hit KO'd by things. Generally speaking, though, I think it's quite strong, and it's something that I'm going to want to be able to just get out of the way, one-hit KO if possible. Next up, we have Elekid. Elekid is another phenomenal pick from my opponent. You'll notice that even though its attack is 2 points lower than its special attack, I think it's going to be a special attacker this week. And I think most of the time it gets brought, it will probably also be a special attacker. You see 161 stat here at max speed. I don't know if it'll run max speed because my next fastest mon after Sneasel is not for a while. I think it's base 70. But still with a speed boost at +1, it can get quite fast. And the reason I've made it physical here is because its coverage moves are almost entirely physical, whereas it gets a lot of special moves, but only like a couple of those are coverage moves. It gets Psychic, it gets Round, that's it in terms of coverage. So something like Cross Chop, Fire Punch, Ice Punch, Wild Charge, it can run some other fighting type move as well, like Brick Break. Hammer Arm, Focus Punch if it's going to be crazy, Low Kick if it's going to be bad. Dynamic Punch if it's going to be lucky. There's just a lot of coverage for this thing. It can run even Dark type coverage, Fling, Thief, etc. Honestly, would not be surprised to see something like Fling TR71 for a base 130 power Dark type move, one-time use. But moving on. Drifloon looks kind of threatening when you look at it. It gets a lot of good moves, but it also doesn't have a real flying stab outside of Gust. This is the same problem with Drifblim. They need to give Drifblim Hurricane, please. Someone tell Game Freak that Drifblim needs a flying type move. Anybody. But anyways, this thing gets Tailwind. That's my opponent's Tailwind setter. It's base 70 speed, which makes it actually faster than my Fletchling, although my Fletchling does get priority. It also gets Unburden, and something that I've seen used on it is Weakness Policy with like a weak Ice Shard. Something I've personally used is Ice Shard Sobble to side proc Weakness Policy on a Drifloon. It's really strong. I think Swinub could be filling that role here if it's going to be playing more defensively. And at +2 speed and +2 special attack, this thing can hit really hard. Like, you can see, it's base 60 special attack. Modest, it hits 123, double that, 246. We're talking big numbers for Little Cup at level 50. And so, and it also has really good HP. The thing about Drifloon is it's flying type. And because it's a flying type, and I have a lot of good mons that have good coverage into flying types, it's going to be less of a threat. Like, particularly, I've run the calc. The Sneasel set that I have run does a number to it. So I'll get into that more when I get to my team, but here we go. Lickitung. Lickitung has the ability Oblivious. It could also, really, like, none of its abilities are great. I think Cloud9, if my opponent is running Cloud9 Lickitung, I actually have concern. Because Cloud9 kind of doesn't help my strategy for this week very much, which we'll get into, of course. But that's probably its best ability for this week, if I'm to be completely honest. It gets great coverage. It gets Belly Drum. So I want to be always able to make sure that I'm doing at least 50% to this thing. The problem with this mon is, again, its speed stat. It's base 30 speed, which my Trick Room mons can underspeed and everything else on my team can outspeed. Even if it's like max speed or min speed respectively. Something like Body Slam, Brick Break, Earthquake, Belly Drum is a possibility. It doesn't get any priority as far as I know. I don't think it gets Quick Attack. Or a similar move. Extreme Speed, it doesn't get, as long as I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, no Quick Attack, and no Extreme Speed. So, again, it can run Citrus Berry, it can run a number of different berries, it can run a Belly Drum set, it can run a non-Belly Drum set. It still hits a great attack stat without Belly Drum, but, again, it's going to be always out of speed control. So if this thing wants to set up, it has to be ready to take 2 hits. Or just have a Redirector on the field. And that is where Tangela comes in, because Tangela is my opponent's Redirector. It can run an offensive set. It can run something like Life Orb, Energy Balls, Agent Power, Sludge Bomb. If you look at its special attack, it's base 100. It's also base 115 defense, which is crazy to think about. That's a huge stat for a Little Cup mon, and base 65 HP. The thing is, its special defense is only 40 here. And that's going to come into play this week, I think, because if I can hit this thing on the special side, I can do some serious damage. And even on the physical side, I have Sneasel, which can hit it for super effective with Triple Axle and actually take it out, I think. Other than Sleep Powder, it can also run Rage Powder, which is incredibly concerning, just in general, because Rage Powder does a lot of damage, naturally speaking. Or metaphorically speaking, that is to say, because it can let my opponent just set up whatever he wants with his other mon. However, I do have a team that I think has some counters to all of these threats. So let's just get straight into that. Here we go. Hello. I have not plugged in my capture device. Let's do that. Hello? Okay, just a second. We have plugged in the capture device. Hello? Okay. We've got the audio working. We've got the video not working. Hello? Hello? Please? You guys can't see the team, I guess. Sorry. There we go. Okay. Got that solved. Sorry for the delay. That was kind of funny, I guess. But here is our team for this week. We have our little Borb. We have, we've got Weatherproof, the first time we're seeing a Helioptile coming in. Etchy no You, which is a great emote, by the way. Shoutouts to Etchy, Pokemon Speedrunner. Has a Bulbasaur emote that's just holding a sign that says no you. Great. Funny emote. We have this little guy's face. I mean, look at it. That is its face. Its nickname is its face. What more can I say? And finally, we have Das Uber Schneebel, our little Sneasel. So, let's talk about everything kind of in order. Naturally, our Fletchling is holding the Focus Sash this week. Very important item. Want to make sure it's surviving a hit because it is quite frail. As you can see, its defenses are not great. We are running max speed, or almost max speed. It's 1 off max speed, and we're running max HP. It's 1 off max speed because it's base 62, and my opponent has a couple base 60s that I'm worried about. We've also got just 4 in every other stat. Distribute the points evenly. 1 defense point, 1 special defense point, and then the rest goes in attack. 4. And the reason we're running essentially without attack investment this week is because this is going to be side weakness policy proc. It can do some damage for sure, but really its main goal here is to set up Tailwind, side proc weakness policy, set up Sun. And how am I going to do all 3 of those? I have Peck. I am running Peck Fletchling, in addition to Tailwind, Dual Wing Beat, and Sunny Day. It doesn't need any coverage because Flying type hits everything on my opponent's team for neutral except Elekid and Carnage, unless I'm missing something. And this isn't really there to deal with those 2 anyways. In fact, it's probably getting 1-hit KO'd by each of them with priority. Again, Peck, Tailwind, Dual Wing Beat, Sunny Day. Sunny Day is important because I need to get Sun up for my Bulbasaur. That's kind of the whole gist of it. Very important to my team. Jolly Nature, naturally, to be max speed, because it needs to outspeed that base 60. Next up, we have Parfait. This is my... what's it called? Spritzy. It's holding the Eviolite again this week. It's a very good Eviolite holder, as I've explained. It's got great defenses. And this week, I am actually running max HP, max defense with 4 special defense. And of course, naturally, min speed. The reason I'm running this spread is because I think most of my opponent's big threats to my Trick Room mode are all physical attackers. We see the Carvana, we see the Elekid that I think is physical this week. We see the Lickitung, we see the Swinub, we see the Carnage. All 5 of those, and also the Dratini for a 6th, all threaten my Trick Room mode somewhat, and all of them are physical attackers. So I'm less concerned about the special attackers because I feel like they're not going to be as detrimental to my Trick Room side. Namely, Tangela doesn't really hit my Trick Room mons. I don't think Drifblim wants to stay in to take hits in Trick Room. Squirtle, I don't know what it's doing if it's not shell smashing, so it's not going to be it's not going to be a big threat to my Trick Room mode. So yeah, that's kind of how that, I think, is going. We've got Protect, Helping Hand, Trick Room, Energy Ball. Energy Ball was kind of a decision that I made on the fly. I was thinking that really there's only 1 Pokemon that gets hit by its stab for super effective, or 2 if you count Dratini, and I don't think Dratini is the most likely because of Ice Shard and just Sneasel in general. So I went with Energy Ball because I think it hits more of my opponent's team for at least neutral or, well, in terms of hitting for neutral, I think Moonblast is going to be doing more, but I think Energy Ball is my way to kind of hit stronger. I'm expecting to be able to set up grassy terrain at some points, so all those reasons being why I chose Energy Ball. We're running Brave Nature, or not Brave, Relaxed, sorry. And naturally we've got all that set up. Next, we have Helioptile. I'm very proud of this set. We're running a, what's it called item? The Safety Goggles item. And that is because I don't want to have to deal with sleep or redirection from the Tangela with this Pokemon specifically, because the Pokemon that I think I want to be threatened by Helioptile are going to be the ones that it can hit for are super effective, basically. What I want this thing to be ignoring the redirection from Tangela from, because they benefit so much from its redirection. Something like Tangela Squirtle, for example, as a lead, and then I can just hit for super effective into the Squirtle with the Thunderbolt from this. And it has to respect that I can be running Dry Skin as well, so it can't just go for like a Surf, for example. It has to go for an Ice Beam if it wants to hit this. Now, of course, I'm not actually Dry Skin this week. I'm running Solar Power because it hits harder. Particularly in the sun, I think that this thing can be really good. I'm running Max Speed, Max Special Attack. The reason for this is because my opponent has other Pokemon that are base 70, and I really need to be able to at least speed tie the base 70 Pokemon. If it's a speed tie, then there's a chance that I can actually do some stuff with this, as opposed to just getting taken out. Because again, if you look at its stats, its base defenses are not great. They're decent, but not what I would consider great. And I have no HP investment, actually, and that was an intentional choice. If you know what Solar Power does, it's 1/8 of my maximum HP per turn. I could have run 1 point of HP instead of 1 point of defense, but I didn't, because if I hit 120, then I'm taking an extra point of damage every turn from Solar Power. So leaving myself 1 HP short of that actually gives me more HP after 2 turns in the sun. We're going Protect, Parabolic Charge, Thunderbolt, Dark Pulse. The Dark Pulse is really just coverage against Carnage, because Carnage is the other thing that, like, I think Helioptile is good against the redirection aspect, and Carnage wants to be redirected away from while it is getting its Sword Stance up. Helioptile really hard counters that, and I want to be able to take advantage of that hard counter by just getting a one-hit KO on it immediately. Because I resist almost everything that it can throw at me. So that's why I've gone with Dark Pulse this week. Parabolic Charge is really... I could have run a second coverage move. I could have run something like even Weather Ball. Would have been a great choice, I think. But I decided to go with Parabolic Charge because it hits both opponents. And my opponent has, I think 4 Pokemon on their team that are weak to Electric-type moves. It also gives me some really good HP back, regeneration, because I'm going to be taking a lot of damage in the sun. And of course, I look like I have a sun team, but I can still be running Dry Skin here because of the opponent's water type. Next, we go on to Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur is naturally going to be running Chlorophyll, and it's running the weakness policy this week. This is why I have that Peck on Fletchling, which I still think is hilarious, by the way. I think Peck is a hilarious move to be running in competitive, but it does 25 to 30% on side weakness policy proc if I don't max. So it's just something to kind of guarantee that I'm doing as minimal damage as possible. Of course, normally I'm going to be maxing this Pokemon anyways. So we've got our max special attack, max speed, modest. You note that I hit 97 stat. I could have hit 96 if I just wanted to outspeed +2 modest, like basically Squirtle after a Shell Smash. That's what I would outspeed with 96 speed. However, I would speed tie Carvana after +1 after it gets a boost. So if my opponent brings a timid Squirtle and outspeeds me, good on them. But I'm expecting it to be modest because it wants to Shell Smash. Either way, Bulbasaur also ignores the redirection from Tangela, and it hits it for super effective with Sludge Bomb. I've also got Sleep Powder, Solar Beam, and Weather Ball. Weather Ball naturally being there to max Flare. Some of my opponents' Pokemon, such as the Tangela, for example. The Carnage is the one thing that Solar Beam, Sludge Bomb doesn't hit for neutral. So, as well as the Combi, I think it hits for neutral, but it's not great. Anyways, at +2, I should still KO like a Chansey with a Happiny with a little bit of special defense investment. Just because, I mean, look at it. It hits 256 special attack stat. That's an incredible stat to hit. I can also just put things to sleep with this. And, I mean, what's not to like about putting the opponent to sleep? I think everything is great. And I think this Pokemon, with its modest nature, is going to be doing a lot of damage. Next is Reuniclus face. Or not Reuniclus. This is Mini Reuniclus. Solosis. Its name is its face. Deal with it. I've done this. It's my decision. You have to live with it. I'm running, again, Life Orb Magic Guard. It's a great set. I could have run Overcoat if I was more concerned about Tangela, but I'm not really concerned about Tangela at all because I already have 2 counters to Tangela. I don't think I need a third. And I think my opponent has to respect that I can be running Overcoat anyways and can't even like Sleep Powder or Rage Powder when this thing is on the field if they have Tangela out. Because I also get Ally Switch with this thing if I'm really crazy. Anyways, this is actually 0 attack. I just hatched this earlier today. It was my first one that I got that was 0 speed and all of the others 31 without worrying about its attack, but it was also 0 attack, so I got very lucky there. It's running 144 HP. I don't know the reason for that. I think it's Grassy Terrain Recovery. But yeah, in general, it's kind of the same sort of spread that I was running last week in terms of max special attack, bit of HP, good amount of HP, bit of defense. This thing is frail, but it's not the most frail thing. I'm running Protect, Recover, which is a new move for me this week. I'm really thinking I can just outlast my opponent with Recover if I need to. And if I get a free turn, getting a Recover off is always nice to do, just if I'm like running low. I also have Psychic, and naturally I'm going to be needing Shadow Ball to take care of Carnage. I don't have any coverage into Carvana with this, so really, if Carvana is my opponent's endgame, I'm going to have to play very smartly with my Solosis if it goes on the field, but there's a reason I'm not hard Trick Room this week, and that reason is because I think I can better deal with Carvana outside of Trick Room even. And if I have to, Carvana's getting speed boosts every turn, I'm not going to need to worry about it after a certain amount of time because everything is outspeeding it or underspeeding it anyways. Quiet Nature for max special attack and speed, naturally. And finally we have Dusnuba. This is our Sneasel. We've got the Never Melt Ice again. This is our 3rd week in a row running Never Melt Ice Sneasel because it's just so good. I mean, this is essentially the same moves that I've been running. I've just added Sunny Day over the Protect slot or the Throat Chop slot. third week in a row that I've had essentially the same set. This week we're running our Das Menschenfreund, the sociable mark, and we're running. I mean, we've minted it to adamant, but it's technically jolly because I just caught too many jollies. I didn't realize it. This actually, naturally, it's level 100 because I've had to get it trained up with the hyper training because I always want to be running Sneasel with a mark, but it's max attack. It's hitting a certain speed stat. I'm going to double check the speed stat that it's hitting because I don't remember it exactly. It's running 212 investment, which I think is 162 stat. Again, that's just enough to outspeed 161. And that's what Elekid hit at max speed Jolly. So this is going to be 1 point faster than Elekid. It's going to be slower than some other things. It's going to be slower than a +1 adamant. Or at least I think it's going to be slower than a +1 adamant fish thing, but it should be enough with fake out pressure and everything to just and with its just insane power to not have to worry about that in terms of the speed tier. And also I've got so much to deal with Carvana because I've noticed it as a big threat that I'm not worried about it. Again, that's kind of the whole team, I guess. So thank you for watching the team builder, and hopefully I will have the battle video up later today. Of course, naturally, this video is going to be going up after the battle has already finished, so that there's no spoilers for my opponent to take a look at. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the battle. Until then, bye!